Hello and welcome to the newly named Freeze Frame Rate NewsCast, formerly known as the Game Vamp NewsCast, but for continuity reasons I decided to change up the name a little bit to just try to make it all very similar. Naming one show a completely different name to what the channel is named, it just didn't work out. So welcome to the newly named and the same kind of show, Freeze Frame Rate Newscast. This is the place where you can get all your gaming news for the week. Now, just a disclaimer for you guys, I always record these on a Wednesday night, so if a news story came out on Thursday when this is released on YouTube, then I have not covered it and it will be put into next week's show. Now, we have 4 stories that we're going to cover this week, and let's get started right away because we had a lot to cover in a short amount of time. So, with the release of Bayonetta 1 and 2 for the Nintendo Switch, there's been a lot of talk in the news on re-releases, and it seems like re-releases have been something that has been really big and ever since the re-releases or remakes. So the Crash Bandicoot is one big one where it sold a lot and it did great for that franchise. So what am I talking about in this case? Well, one has been officially announced as of yesterday, and it was leaked that this was going to be coming out, and it just it was a racer that is loved by a lot of people. It was for a lot of people it's considered one of the best racers ever made, and it kind of blurred the lines between racing fans and non-racing fans. It really allowed both groups to enjoy the game so much. And what game am I talking about? I'm talking about Burnout Paradise. Now it's the best Burnout game in the franchise, and they never were ever able to release a follow-up to that game to do it justice. So they are remastering from the ground up and re-releasing Burnout Paradise for the PS4, Xbox One, and PC. Now for Xbox One and PS4, that will be released on March 16th. It is coming out in less than a month. So we have a short amount of time to be able to pick this up, and then the PC one will come out later. Now, in the rumors, there were talks of a potential Switch version of this game coming out, but in the trailer that they released announcing this re-release and this remake, they did not share anything in regards to a Switch version, so that is still rumor. But this is a great idea. I think it's a game that people have always wanted because they never released a Burnout game that was as good as that one, and they never had an opportunity to make another one for it. And so it's a great way to just bring people back, and maybe, hey, this could spring load a original new Burnout game if it sells very well. I personally have never played it, but I've heard many, many great things about this game, and I'm very inclined to pick this one up personally to give it a shot and see how it works. So that's one of many, many re-release announcements. Now another one, this one is on the rumor mill, that Blizzard is in talks, that they have kind of hinting to a lot of people that they are wanting to use their in quotes, Blizzard is looking to implement a local co-op feature in a game, and they haven't officially kind of got involved with the Switch yet. But they have talked about how they have had interest in potentially taking Hearthstone and putting it in a home and mobile hybrid console, aka basically that's the Switch. The Switch is a switch between a mobile and an in-home console, which is exactly what they're talking about. And basically when they're talking about the co-op feature, Diablo 3 is a game that has co-op features in it. And the reason why people are thinking that they might be retaking Diablo 3 and making it for the Switch is because they also made a PS3 version. They made one of those, I want to say that was 3 or 4 years ago, they made a PS3 version of Diablo 3, and the Switch has started to kind of take ports that have came from PS3, Xbox 360 versions, and easily can port those to the Nintendo Switch. So since they've already done one in a PS3 version of Diablo 3, it's very, very likely that they can take that version and bring it to the Switch. And so that's where that quote where they said that they want to implement a local co-op feature and start bringing things to hybrid and home/mobile hybrid consoles, it really is a good idea for them to do that. And I think overall, the Switch's identity has been very interesting. They've been great with the first party games. They've done awesome with that front. But then they also have taken third party games from last generation and have turned them to where they say, well, you love those games, well, now you can take those on the go. And it's appealing for some fans. It is really appealing, and it's making those games sell really well. And I guess I never saw this coming, of third-party support not necessarily being current video games that are coming out, but old generation games being brought to the Switch so that you could put a new dynamic to it by saying, hey, not only can you play this game, you can play it on the go now. And that's enticing for some fans. That really is. And so this is something that it makes a new market for the Switch a little bit. Blizzard has never really touched Nintendo very often, if not rarely, if not ever. And this is just another opportunity for them to expand the marketplace, expand the Switch user by saying, hey, you can take this great game in Diablo 3 and take it on the go with you, and you can do a co-op feature with your friends. That's really appealing for gamers, especially for a game like that. It's very unique and very different, and it's an amazing selling game, and it's reviewed very, very well. And so it just really shows how Nintendo's strategy really is working, where they're not just taking the first party and really rocking with that, but they are taking third party of old generation games and bringing it and saying, hey, you can take it on the go. You should really buy this version. And people are doing it. People are buying it. And that's not a bad strategy. It's working out well for them. The Switch is selling like hotcakes. Now, the final re-release. Now, this one I considered a re-release, because it's already been re-released, is there was on Amazon Germany, there was a post of GTA 5 Premium Edition, and its release date is dated for March 23rd. Now, this game has already had a re-release. It originally came out for the last generation of consoles, so PS3, Xbox 360, and then they re-released it on PC and then PS4 and Xbox One. So they've already re-released it. But the fact they want to re-release it again, and apparently it's going to contain all the DLC, all the bonus content that you could get anywhere else, that's where it's all going to be at. But it just opens up the question for me, because this game has already shipped 90 million copies worldwide, and somehow, and from that, it ends up being a top 5 selling game of all time. Like, that is amazing. 90 million copies. That's insane. If you look at the end of the year sales for, I want to probably say the last 3 or 4 years, GTA 5 somehow still ends up in the top 10 of best-selling games and the most sold games, which is ridiculous. The one thing I don't understand is I don't get by releasing this, because they've already dominated the sales. They have 90 million of these sold. Why do they think that they're going to be selling more by re-releasing the re-release with extra content? Why do they think they're going to get more out of it? Because they've already sold 90 million. Like, it's just insane. And on top of that, they are, with Red Dead Redemption 2 coming out in Q4 of this year, I wonder what kind of sales are they expecting from this. And on top of that, the major question that, because this is it got taken down as soon as it was posted on Amazon, is that what is the price? If you're asking a consumer to still pay $60 for this game, even though it is the ultimate version, has all the stuff in it, if you're asking the consumer to still pay $60 for it, I don't know if that's going to be enough to make them budge on it, because this game has already been re-released another time. So it just opens up a can of worms. I don't know if, I honestly just don't know what the strategy is for Rockstar in this. I mean, obviously it can't hurt. I mean, they're making a boatload of money off this game, and it might actually help it climb even more bigger sales charts. But it's just, this one just really was more of like a question mark, more than a like, this is a great idea, they really should be doing this, because The people that are on playing GTA 5 right now are the ones that want to be playing GTA 5 right now. I don't think there's a new market for them right now that justifies saying, hey, we need to re-release the re-release of this game. So this week has been full of tons of re-release announcements, and so those are three big ones that have just popped up in the news recently. Now, going to our second story. So PUBG, and if people don't understand what the acronym stands for, it's Players Unknown Battlegrounds, and so they call it PUBG, so they don't have to say the title all the time. So PUBG has hit. So according to Steam Spy Player, it has hit 30 million copies in sales, and it makes it a top 15 selling game of all time. And with these high sales, the interesting thing is that the numbers of active players have sharply decreased, which in the story it slightly showed that they were slightly concerned about this. But I wouldn't at all. I think the sales numbers are amazing, obviously making top 15 best-selling games of all time, and it's only on one platform right now. Now I know it has transferred to Xbox One, but these sales numbers are only exclusively for the PC sales. They have not combined it with Xbox One sales, so it could be selling even more, and obviously it's probably selling more, and so it's going to be working its way up the list. But the fact that it's done that on PC alone is amazing. It is astounding. Now, we talked about 90 million copies in sales for Grand Theft Auto 5. That was on 2 generations worth of hardware and PC. This one is 30 million, and it's doing 1/3 of it in just one market. It's amazing. That is insane. And the big thing is even though the number of users has significantly sharply decreased, I don't think that's an issue for this game. They said in the story there's still 1 million active users playing the game currently, and they have not came out and said specifically that they are not interested in releasing this game for other consoles besides just the Xbox One and the Microsoft platform. That potentially this could possibly be released for Sony's PlayStation, and potentially, based off the game and how it looks, I could easily see it potentially be supported to the Switch as well, and that would bring even more sales for them and even more copies sold, and that could bring up the active users. Now, because when you look at it, Xbox One is, according to the last figures we were able to look at last year, and now I'm applying to early 2017 is when we got these numbers, is that it seemed like PlayStation 4 was outselling Xbox One at a 2-to-1 margin. Now the numbers have not been out yet to kind of confirm that since 2017 coming into 2018. So it's been a full year since we've seen active numbers to know how well these consoles have been selling since. But if we're basing off that, their users could still increase by a boatload if they released it on the PS4 market, because they have 60 million PS4s out there. So that is an entire huge market that they could still target. So I wouldn't be very nervous about this at all with the sharply decreasing of the active users. The fact that it has reached 30 million copies sold is amazing, and they have, no matter what, have changed the shooter franchise market for at least the next 5 years. They've absolutely changed the market. People are copying their versions of what they're doing in games right now. It is impressive. It's absolutely impressive, and they should be proud of themselves for what they have done. And just with this generation of games like this, people don't feel like games are innovating. They innovated, and they have shown that games can still innovate. It just takes a good group of people to be able to get that innovation out of others. So that is great. So congrats, PUBG, on getting that huge mark, and hopefully you guys are able to release your stuff to a wider market so that you can have a bigger big of active user base, which is right now it's not a big issue, even though it's obviously sold 30 million copies and only 1 million people are playing it currently. That's not a big deal. It happens, and they'll just keep improving it and being able to release it in other programs. Now, this next story is a little bit of a depressing one and a little bit frustrating, even though I'm personally not involved in this at all whatsoever. But there was a System Shock reboot that was on Kickstarter. So they were remaking the original System Shock, and it was going to be remade from the ground up. And they announced, and they ended up getting about $1.3 million in funds to kickstart this campaign. It made its bench goal to be able to create this game according to the people that created the page. Now, they have just announced to their backers that they are going on hiatus. Now, what kind of sparked that is they are being abundantly clear. They are stating that they are just taking a break. They are not ending the project, and all promises that they have promised will be fulfilled, and they will have a game. Just a source familiar to the project has told Polygon that quote unquote mission creep and the unrealistic expectations had eaten up Kickstarter funds. And basically, when you read more into it, and I put all the links to the articles in the video description below. So if you want to look at the quote unquotes, if you want to look at more of the story that I'm grabbing the headline from, feel free to read the story. I highly encourage it if you're interested in more details. But basically, taking all the statements that they were saying, the CEO kind of said that they had lost control of the vision and the money kind of went with it. And they are low in the money department right now. And that is really unfortunate. It truly is. And they even have stated that while they were in this process where they were finding they were losing their path and making this game that really wasn't turning it into the game that it was supposed to be and following the true forms of System Shock, that they were trying to look for another party to bring in more money so that they could be able to make more of the game, but that didn't fall through. No one wanted to, on a third party side, be able to fund this game. And so they ended up wasting all that money, all that 1.3. Now, they have not stated if all the money is gone. They have not stated where the money is technically, but they have just stated that they have to take a break because most of the assets are gone and that they're going to eventually finish the game, but it is now pushed back 18 to 24 months, and it was supposed to come out either at the end of this year or at the end of next year. It was supposed to already be out by then. So the fact that it's being pushed over potentially at least another 1 to 2 years is insane. And it really just shows how unfortunate this is. Like one of the bad sides when it comes to Kickstarter, and what really can go wrong when you don't have good checks and balances with the money that is being used by people that are trying to fund a game or an idea that they're trying to come into fruition. And so, and the one thing I think gaming needs to take a look at is when they think about a Kickstarter, they really need to look at potentially saying like, hey, when we are looking to fund this, we have a third party already in mind for publishing. So an example could be Shenmue 3. They partnered with Sony. Now Sony has stated, and they have, that Shenmue they're making the game that they want. But to be honest, Sony is backing some money into Shenmue 3, even though that it's mostly funded by their Kickstarter. Sony is putting money on there to make sure that that game comes out, and having that backup for when you need it is something that's crucially important, especially because it's people's money. I mean, Shenmue had around $6 million towards their Kickstarter campaign, and losing that much money where people are giving a lot of money. Some people are giving a lot of money because they're expecting the project to be complete. And when the checks and balances aren't done right and people aren't seeing what's being done with their money, it becomes a very scary thing, especially when a company has made basically $1.3 million. In this case, System Shock has $1.3 million, and kind of just said, we wasted your money. And now they're in a pickle, and now the people aren't going to get the product that they wanted, that they paid for, and there's no way that that studio is going to refund their money. It just won't happen. And so unfortunately, this is one of the bad things that does come out of the Kickstarter when it comes to the games industry. Now, the one thing I would say is that when they come back from hiatus, I think that they need to take a look at how to be transparent for the rest of the process of this game, because clearly one thing I can appreciate is that they were very transparent about them screwing up this process. This process was screwed up because they messed up. They were not going by the vision that they were supposed to be going by. They got carried away with all the toys and the nooks and crannies because they had $1.3 million to make this game out of. But they probably should reassess and say, hey, we need to start making developer diaries and saying, hey, this is where we're at in the development of the game. Now, I'm not sure if they've done that already, but it seems like, based off the stories that have came off, that this is quite a shock to fans. This is not something that people expected. And so if people aren't expecting it, they weren't transparent enough about it. And so this is where a waste of negligence of money on a Kickstarter to make a game, to make a project, ended up falling a little bit flat. And I hope they're able to get everything back together. They have talked about in that to their Kickstarter people that they are looking at third parties to try to see if they can bring in more funds so that they can be able to finish the game potentially sooner, get more assets into the game, different things like that. But they have said that the game will be complete and all promises will be fulfilled, but unfortunately we'll have to see at the end if the game was worthwhile, and that's unfortunate because this is going to be looming over this game. And so when the game comes out and it potentially doesn't meet the expectations of what people thought it was going to be, even before this issue, like people already are going to have complaints about the game because they're going to go, oh, well, this didn't look as great. Well, it's because they wasted all that money on the Kickstarter and they wasted our money. And so now we don't have that. Now it doesn't look as good, or it's not as long because, oh, they wasted so much time making a level that never made it into the game. And so again, this is where Kickstarter unfortunately fell a little flat. And just let's hope that they can get their act together and be able to bring it back to where it needs to be. Now, for the final story. So Remedy, the studio that has made Alan Wake, Quantum Break games for Microsoft, they have a current game project they've been working on, in that it is on their website. It is called P7 is the code name for it. And so it was announced in a shared earnings report that the game is on track to be released for 2019. So it won't be released this year, but it will be released next year. And it also was revealed that this game is being made in conjunction with 505 Games. Now, 505 Games, if you don't know what 505 Games is, one game you might recognize them for is Abzu. I think that came out about 2 years ago. It's by the art director from Journey, ended up being the game director for Abzu and 505 Games. And so that means P7 won't be an Xbox Microsoft exclusive. And so the reason why I bring this up is just the trend that Microsoft is going on. And it makes me alarmed and a little concerned. So recently it's been showing more and more that Microsoft has been lowering the amount of first-party studios that they have, and with that, with losing more of those, you lose more and more first-party games. And I just don't understand the strategy. I don't get it. You need first-party software to push your console, because if you can't have games that people can only play on your console, they will go to another console and just play your games on them because it's for everybody. It's not exclusively for your console. And this is a big reason why PlayStation has done so well recently. And when I mean recently, I mean within like half of the last generation into the current time now, because they focused on first party. They had amazing first party games that people wanted to play, so they are willing to buy that PS4, that PS3, or that PS4 console to play those experiences, because that's where you can get them only. That's the only spot you can get them. So it's just not only that, because is also the variety. Microsoft has just their couple franchises that they're well known for. They got the racing game with Forza. They have the shooter with Halo, the first person shooter. They got the third person shooter with Gears of War. What do they got after that, though? It really, they don't really have very much after that. I mean, they had Remedy, and that was a big proponent for them. Alan Wake did well for Microsoft, and it also Quantum Break got pretty good reviews. It didn't get amazing reviews, but it got good enough for reviews where it's people are like, it is worth playing, and so you should get an Xbox One because of it. Now, the other reason why I mention this is because so they have Sea of Thieves coming out, and so that is an example of expanding and being able to hit multiple markets and having variety in their content. And that's why people are so hyped about Sea of Thieves, is because it's so different than what Microsoft has done in the past. It opens a wider variety. It opens the gaming market for people that are not used to a Microsoft console. So people that might have interest in Sea of Thieves now might have interest in a Microsoft console, because Sea of Thieves touches the note that makes them want to go play that game. It makes them want to go buy that console. Now, potentially, it didn't announce anything about if they are done with their work with Microsoft, but if they're doing conjunction with 505 Games on the secret project, and that is taking place in the Remedy universe is what they call it, but it's a new IP, Microsoft lost its in. Unless they're working on a new project that's specifically meant for Microsoft only, they just lost another good publisher that was going to make games for them that makes people want to come to their console. And unfortunately, I just don't get it. I don't understand what their strategy is for this. And it's about the games. It's always about the games, and to sell your console, you need the good games that can be only on your console, so people want to buy your console. I have talked to so many people of my friends and people online in chats rooms and things like that, where people are just not interested in Xbox. People are losing interest in Xbox One, because even with the Xbox One X that's out right now, people don't want to buy it because they said, what games am I going to play on it that I can't play on my PS4? What games are on it that I can't play on my Switch? That's a really great question. It really is. And so this is where losing Remedy is like losing a franchise for them. It really is. And it's losing another reason for someone that wants to just go buy that Xbox, because that's the game I want to play and it's the only spot I can get it. So, but who knows? They might be working on something for Microsoft exclusively, and they just haven't announced it. It didn't share anything in the earnings report that would say that they are working on another project, because even though they have code names, they do share what project they're working on, because this is to executives, this is to the boards, this is to investors to say, hey, this is where we're at in finances, this is the projects we are working on. And even though they haven't announced the title of this P7 game, you know about it because it has a code name at least, so that people know that there is a project being working on. And so when I was reading the earnings report, there was nothing in there saying that they were working on another secret project that had a code name of any kind that they could look for in the future. So at the moment, it looks like they are not doing anything with Microsoft anymore, and that's seriously unfortunate, because to have a healthy game market, we need great games for all consoles, for all platforms. We need great games. And if we're only getting it from one group of people, or one publisher, or one system, then that means that they don't have to work as hard to get that customer, and then that means the quality of the games drop, and then we're not getting the quality of the games that we deserve as gamers. So that's it for this week's Freeze Frame Rate newscast. What do you think of these stories for the week? Let me know in the comments below. And if you like the content, give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends. And if you want to keep up with the content I'm releasing each and every week here on Freeze Frame Rate, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. My name is Mitch. I'm signing off saying, see you soon.